Sharlene Lynch. Wow, what a great story. Oh, how inspirational Sharlene is. It's a great, great conversation. So she had a very rough, I don't know really where to begin. Her son died, committed suicide at 17, and it was obviously a major shift for her and what she needed to do. She was a hoarder. She was abused substances. She had a lot of issues going on with her health, obviously, with all that. And the way she was able to turn it around and make poignant decisions at these low times in her life is inspirational. And what does she do now? She helps others get out of these areas as well. She has this wonderful shift method, SHIFT. S, see the big picture. H, hone on reality. I'm going to leave IFT for you to learn about very shortly. But Sharlene is just inspirational, just wonderful energy. Her mission is to lift the frequency of the planet. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Hour or so, we'll see how it goes. Sharlene Lynch, how are you today? Thank you so much for your time.
Yay, I'm excited to be here.
How do we discover and manage our superpowers?
Yeah, well, for me, most of them have been discovered by accident. Some have been diagnosed. Others have been, prevalent and have been discovered in hindsight as opposed to in the moment. So how do we discover? Well, for me, I suppose journaling has been a superpower as far as a way to unravel and reveal the layers of me and the patterns of me. It's also enabled me to have that distance between thought and action so that I can read it almost like in the second, third person, so that I'm reading as it is someone else. It gives me a more objective opportunity to have a look at what my thought processes are. And that has revealed more about me to me than anything else. Is the journaling. Yeah.
Journaling is it does a lot for me as well. And meditation. Do you meditate?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. Well, I think if they could actually figure out how to charge for it, I reckon they'd make $1 gazillion. Yeah, it's free. And you can do it anywhere, anyhow. You can quieten the mind. You can get yourself prepared for something. So if I'm doing a big speaking gig, I will definitely do a series of meditations, even 3 days out, to get myself into a better state. It helps me manage my anxieties. It helps me on every level. Meditation helps me focus and unfocus at the same time. Is that strange?
And how did you come across it? How did you discover it?
Well, both of my parents are ministers of religion. And so in my early childhood, meditation was seen as something that was evil. and taboo. And now
Really?
it's really interesting in the church, like they just tell you to meditate on a verse, you know. So the how they've changed their colors on that, that's fascinating. So for the most part, I've always meditated, even before I realized what it was, because I was born with interesting challenges. I am ably different on every level. And so to give myself that space to handle just the little things that would not, other people would find really easy, like just even social anxiety. I would just talk to myself and I would calm myself down, and then I would just focus on one thing. And it could be a dot on the wall, it could be a clock, it could be anything. I just focus on one thing, and that allowed me to just quieten down. What I didn't know is, even as a child, that's what I was doing. It was a
Mm.
form of meditation. And then later on in life, you know, even just, not that I wash the dishes now, well, I have a dishwasher, but, you know, even just washing dishes or gardening or walking is a type of a moving meditation where you're just focusing on all the different things that are happening to your body while you're moving, and just allowing that space between thought and action.
Yeah, and it helps a lot. Now you're a body language expert. So your kind of three pillars are eyes, breathing, and posture. What is my body telling you right now?
Everybody wants to know that, and that's fascinating. Everyone wants to read everybody else's body language. In a room of even 120 people, I'll ask them, okay, who's here today to actually learn how to read someone else's body language? And nearly 80% of the room put their hand up. So it's fascinating. Everyone wants to know how to read someone else's body language. But the challenge for most of us is that they're busy reading ours. So until we
Mm.
get our body language on point, so that there is no misconception, so that it really lands for them, then you can then focus on reading someone else's. But you know what I find really interesting is that everybody has a way of reading other people's body language. And if it's not body language what they're reading, they're actually reading people's energy, people's
Mm.
intention, because, you know, your energy speaks louder than you do. So they are, yeah, so we can already do it anyway. And, you know, like if you see someone and they're hunched over, you know, they're not okay, you know, but you see someone and they're standing up, you know, they're looking, they're doing okay. Breathing tells a lot about a person. In fact, you can walk into a board meeting and look around at the C-suite executives, and you can tell who the alpha is in the room just by the way that
Mm.
they're breathing. So
Mm.
breathing tells a lot. And so for me, I learnt breathing as a way to cover up the fact that I was anxious. So isn't that interesting?
Mm.
Yes. So look, you look cool, calm, and collected for the most part.
Mm.
So your blink rate is interesting.
Mm.
So so if you were in a sales position right now, you'd want to reduce that blink rate.
Interesting. And what
Yes.
high blink rate shows what?
Well, it shows a little bit of insecurity. Okay, it doesn't
Oh,
show that that you own the space. Yeah. So if
interesting.
you're selling, but you're not selling, so you're okay.
No, I'm
So
not.
one of the things that we're taught as a professional speaker and also as a salesperson is to reduce the blink rate.
Hmm.
And this really became very important during COVID, because now all they can see is this when you're speaking,
Mm.
whether you're selling to
Mm.
camera. And so really the like my mentor cannot blink for 2 hours. I do not I cannot do that.
Wow.
But I'm still working on it. Breathing has taken, to get it to where the level it is right now, it's taken 5 years of just conscious thought to get the breathing where it needs to be.
Hmm.
So the breathing part does take a long time. So body language is fascinating. Everyone wants to know about it. Everyone wants to know how to read someone else's. But the challenge is they need to get theirs sorted first, so that people stop reading them and misinterpreting what's happening for them. But there are some little hacks that you can use that can help you really have a more level playing field when you're having a conversation with somebody.
Which are?
Oh,
Some?
so you mentioned them already. So it's the eyes, it's where you're looking to
Mm.
have the conversation. And speaking to camera, you've got that other nuance too. You know, the person's face is there, but the camera is there. So,
Mm.
how do you negate that? Also, if you're reading as well, then how do you negate that? So
Mm.
it really, the eye contact is very, very important. So as a professional speaker, we're taught to speak to the camera as
Mm.
opposed to look at the person on the screen. Now, that's really hard if you've got slides and it all happening at the same time, but definitely eye contact is number one. If you're speaking in large groups of people, then eye contact is a little different. You need to do it a little differently. And so, what we do when we're speaking to larger groups of people is what we do is we grid the room. And that way, the participants in the room, even if it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, even 10,000 people, they feel like you're looking at them. They feel like you've made that level of connection. So that's a little bit different. So different skill sets, speaking to camera, speaking in front of people, different skill sets. But what is really interesting is since COVID is that we now have to do both things at the same time. So I haven't had a live event where there hasn't been at least one, if not three cameras in the room. So
Mm.
now you've got to speak to camera and you've got to speak to the room at the same time. So
Mm.
hybrid is really the way things are going now, so that people can be online, but they can also be in person as well.
I'm from the northeast of the US, and there's a lot of immigrants. So all my friends were, first generation Polish, Greek, Cyprus, Portuguese, Puerto Rico. So there was so many languages around me that I didn't know that I almost became I had to learn what they were saying through their body. And if my friend's mother all of a sudden started whispering, obviously she didn't want me to hear it, even though it's in another language, and she kind of cowers the body, doesn't make eye contact, and you're just kind of forced to learn how to read bodies because you can't understand the language, and even the inflections, right, and what they're doing, and they're sternly talking to my friend, they're getting reprimanded or they're cheery, and you just learn this just because you're around it.
Absolutely. And we innately learn this as well. So I
Mm,
suppose from most of the people that are students in the rooms that I teach, they want to master their communication for influence and authority. So they either want to sell or they want to influence their boss or somebody else. So
hmm.
it's more about them learning what are the habits that they're doing that really are portraying a different outcome than they want. Yeah, a different response than they want. Yeah.
Hmm. Very interesting. Now, Charlene, anybody who's listening, I want to kind of give them a framework of, you've had substance issues. You were a hoarder at one point. You tragically lost your son when he was 17, but you got all this, and you really, really turned it around. The first the way that you forgave your son was just every time I heard it, when I heard you talk about it, it was just so inspiring. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that night changed my life
Right.
on every level, obviously. But that act of forgiveness, that was pinnacle. And if
Mm.
I look back now, and I have by rereading my journals, is that if I hadn't gone through that process of that forgiveness, I wouldn't have been on the trajectory that I am now.
Hmm.
So, listeners today, take note. Who is it that you need to forgive? Do you need to forgive yourself? Do you need to forgive your parents? Who do you need to forgive? So, I'm a survivor of both family and domestic violence. So, the forgiving process hasn't just been isolated to that one thing. Now, just to give some more context, I didn't do this by myself.
Hmm.
That night, as I was, I tried to resuscitate my baby boy and I was unsuccessful. And then the ambulance officers came and they tried for 15 minutes to resuscitate him. But this entire process, I'm still praying that they'll be able to do what I couldn't do. They'll be able to miraculously bring him back to life. And when the ambulance officer came out of the room and he looked at me, I know that he said something, but I don't actually know what
Hmm.
it is that he said.
Hmm.
just the look on his face was enough to know. But I was still praying. And that's when I got the answer to my prayers. And the answer to my prayer was one word, and it was loud, and I thought everybody heard it, and it was forgive. So that clearly came from above. And so I felt I was commanded to forgive. So there was no if, but, or any other communication outside the fact that it was done. The forgiveness was done. And when I went in to say goodbye to my baby boy, he's 6'2", so a big kid. I lied down on the ground and I put my head on his chest and I said that Mummy loves you and I forgive you. And that was it. That the act of forgiveness now allowed me to be at a different frequency. I was literally healing at the speed of love. Now, I can tell you that I didn't forgive myself instantly. Got to tell you, as a mother, there's mother's guilt. It's a real thing. It took me a long time to move through that level of forgiveness. But after being able to forgive Scott for his choice, I was able to have a whole series of things happen one after the next that then moved me into the direction that I'm in now. And absolutely fascinating that the act of forgiveness, how once I've gone in and I've dug around in forgiveness about where else I need to show forgiveness, how I've been able to let go of other things that have held me back. And unforgiveness it's thick and it's slow and it's a low frequency and it will stop you moving forward. So just that simple act of forgiveness, and sometimes it's not so simple, I understand, it will release you. It's freeing. It's everything they say it is and so much more.
And significant major changes happened eventually, right? I mean, you became a vegetarian. You tell the story how you had a big cup of coffee and it was getting cold and it was the last time you've ever had a coffee. You were hoarding to I heard you say it was like if we can relate to like almost to a football field worth of hoarding contraband. I don't know what you call it. And
Contraband.
I
Well,
don't know.
33 cubic meters of stuff. I don't know about
Yes.
contraband, but a lot of stuff. So people go, oh, how did you know it was 33 cubic meters? Well, in order to get it out of the house, I had to use a skip. So it was the number of skips that I used that
Wow.
helped me understand the sheer the sheer amount of stuff. So a lot of people say, oh, I've got a bit of an issue with hoarding, but they've got a bit of a mess in a few drawers. No, mine was, I had a 16-room house and I had it filled, and I had 2 garages and I had a carport and I had a veranda. Like everything was filled with junk. Yeah.
Amazing. But you describe it as when it was leaving, you felt yourself get lighter.
Yeah. So it's absolutely fascinating is that everything that we have that we call ours is weighs us down. It actually, there's a frequency to it. There's literally a weight to it, and it slows us down. And the less that you have, the less you need to care for. The less that you have, the less decisions you need to make, and you don't get decision fatigue. The less you have, the less you need to worry about. And it again, freeing, lightening. It's a great place to be. So, I've gone from living that life of being a chronic hoarder to living in house and garden. Like we have less of everything, but everything that I have is important to me. And it's interesting. I have a lot of photography sessions and interviews with different papers and magazines. They come here to have the photos done. And what a vast difference that is to old me, the hoarder, that if I didn't know you well, I wouldn't let you in the house. So it's a vast difference. Absolutely.
You used the phrase, please expand upon this, healing at the speed of love.
Yeah, that's the act of forgiveness. So I found myself healing and moving through the phases of grief much faster than everyone around me. And I was able to have a clearer vision. So that night after forgiving him, whilst, and this is where you're referring to the cup of coffee, that night, while I'm sitting there with my feet tucked in underneath me and I was staring at that giant cup of coffee, which was the last coffee I've ever drank, is that I said out loud that I'm going to thrive through this. I'm not just going to survive. So I'd made a decision. So the healing at the speed of love, within hours, I was able to make a decision that I was going to live a different life. Now, if I wasn't in that space of forgiveness, I would still be in that lower frequency. But I was able to shift through the layers of healing that's required to move through grief to get to making a decision that night. And then the very next thing I started to do was to write out in a journal all the things I was grateful for. And that helped lift my frequency even higher so that I could move forward. It was an unusual time. I should have, for all accounts, been the person that everyone was coming to help me. And people they were bringing food and, the normal things that we do when someone's passed away. But I was counseling people on how they felt about the situation and helping them through their grief because I was able to move through mine faster. And so that's what I refer to as healing at the speed of love. Love is fast. The frequency of love is a high frequency. And when we can bring love to any situation, it changes the way we heal, we think, we hold frequencies for others. And I've found that forgiveness in all of its forms for all of the things that you need to forgive, and it can just even be for yourself on a daily basis, it holds you in a higher frequency of love and helps you heal at the speed of love.
That's absolutely wonderful. And, through this, you're able to turn things around, make a change, and be who you are now. And you're a public speaker. You help in so many ways. I mean, what is it like? Is it a burden, Sharlene, to have the mission of lifting the frequency of the planet?
It's a gift.
Hmm.
It's a gift. So sometimes I get frustrated with the speed of things happening because I just want them to happen a little faster. But I can see the changes. I can see that as a human race, for the most part, we're waking up. We're paying attention. We are seeing through the veil. We are, for the most part, what I see is people being kinder to each other. And I think that COVID really did change that. And we're being kinder to ourselves. Yes, there are some dark spots that we're still working on, but I feel that when you turn a light on in a room, it brings the shadows sort of dissipate. And I feel that that's what's happening, is that we're having a global awakening, and that and given enough time, we're going to sort this out and we can move forward. Yeah. No, it's not a burden. It's an honor to know that just the small part that I play in raising my own frequency and then working with other wellness practitioners to raise their frequencies, because then they're helping more people. So I know that I can't do it all by myself, but what I can do is hold the frequency myself, teach others how to do the same thing, and then in turn we raise the frequency of the planet. And what do they say? They say a rising tide lifts all ships. Yeah, that's on every level. That's true.
Certainly does. And so you've created the shift process.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I'm absolutely passionate about it. It's interesting. There's 3 things that happened within 24 hours of Scott's passing that are, like they are key aspects to moving forward. The one was forgiveness. The next one was that making that decision. And, listeners, this might be just the one thing that you need, is just to make that decision. What do you need to make a decision on? So as a recovered hoarder, what I do know now is that I had 33 cubic meters of indecision. And so if you can make decisions, you will, the speed to manifestation is like that. So it just, on every level, you need speed to manifestation. On every level, you need decisions. Yes. And they need to be, so the word decision means to cut off and kill. Right. So think pesticides, suicide. Side means to kill and die means to cut. So cut and kill. when you can make a decision, what happens is you're now living at a different frequency. You can actually move on. So me making that decision to live a life that was going to thrive, even though I didn't know what it looked like, was enabling, for really my reticular activating system to be reprogrammed, and also for me to just be able to move forward. And I was presented with one opportunity after another because I'd made the decision. And the third thing that happened that night was I started writing out what I was grateful for, that which raised my frequency. So those things need to happen as a precursor to the shift process. Yes. Forgiveness so that you can let go, making a decision so that you can focus, and lifting your frequency with gratitude. So they are like precursors to the step 1, 2, and 3. They're kindergarten steps that need to be taken before you can actually lean into the shift process. But the shift process itself is, in hindsight, after I moved through and everyone's going, how did you do this, Sharlene? How did you move from that, what you were, to what you are now? And it wasn't until I started articulating what it is I was doing that I put it together that it was the shift process. So I had been doing it for a really long time before I gave language to it. And it came from the language that I was using, because I was just talking about shifting. I was talking about shifting the way I was thinking about things. And then I unpacked it. So that's, for people that are listening that are not acquainted, that's intellectual property. So if you're sitting there thinking, how am I going to convey to other people the thing that I'm doing that's different than everyone else? What you need to do is dive in deep to have a look at what it is that you've done, so that you can hopefully create an acronym. An acronym is great. So a word that means something that can explain it to other people. It's going to be easier for you too when you're on podcasts and when you're being interviewed and when you're on stage, when you've got a word that you can lean into. You don't have to have any notes. You can just speak from that word. Or you can have an alliteration. Yeah, alliterations work great. The 5 C's, the 3 S's, the 5 D's, they work well as well. But I just love a word. I love a word. So the shift process is really, it is how I got from where I was to where I am. And this is what I shared with other people shortly after Scott's death. And for that first couple of years, I was helping friends, family, and then helping business owners that I knew, help them move forward as well. And then, then I articulated it as a process. Yeah. But I needed help to get there, because you can't see the trees for the forest. You can't see your own process because you're sort of in it. And no amount of journaling was I able to actually see the language. So, this is when you need a coach and a mentor. Yeah. But I'd love to, Joey, if we've got some time, I'd love to just dive into the shift process, because I find it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
See the big picture.
Yes, absolutely. So the shift process is an acronym. The first one is S, and it's see the big picture. So if you could imagine being someone who is a chronic hoarder, someone who's OCD to the point of self-harm, ADHD to the point of total distraction, an alcoholic, and I had been for 30 years, not a little alcoholic, I'm talking, 5 bottles of wine a day. And also chronic health issues, overweight, and a whole stack of other things that weren't okay. Imagine trying to get yourself out of that mud, out of that muck, out of that situation, where if you've got to start your process by looking at where you are, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. What you need to do is raise your frequency and have a look at what could be possible for you. So this works in business because we're in the thick of it. What could your business look like if money wasn't an issue, if staffing wasn't an issue? What would your life look like if your particular challenges or your ably different body wasn't an issue? What would you do? What could you do? And having a vision bigger than you. So, when I was looking at seeing the big picture, one of the things I wrote down was world-class transformational speaker. Well, I had a bit of a laugh about that. And one of the other things I wrote down was making a difference for survivors. So at that time, I was still recovering from family and domestic violence. And so, but I didn't even know, I was still in the thick of it. How could I make a difference for other people? But it was making a decision. So, but that's big, that's lofty. And now I stand in front of you today with a global charity that does make a difference for family and domestic violence. So see the big picture. What is possible for your life? Now, if you language it or write it down and it seems like it's doable, it's just not big enough. You have to have that stretch. You have to have that, Like I just remember when I wrote down world-class transformational speaker, not only was my voice quivering, my hand was quivering, and I was sort of laughing a little too, because like, how dare you think you can do that? And look, you can't even see your floor. So it has to be big, it has to be bigger than you, and it has to feel uncomfortable. So seeing the big picture, absolutely. First step, what that does is it casts a frequency bigger than you, and it is the very first step of manifestation. So if you want to live a life where things, they appear in real time and you can basically have everything your heart desires, then you need to start with the vision. You need to start with the big picture. Absolutely.
Hone on reality.
Yeah. So this is where most therapies start. Where are you right now? And what do you want to do? If I started with where I was right now, I would not have started. So hone in on reality. This is where you need to get real. So for me, honing in on reality meant I needed to get help. I wasn't going to be able to manage my mental health issues. I wasn't going to be able to manage my physical challenges. I wasn't going to be able to manage my stuff without reaching out and getting help. Now, I didn't get one person. I got a person who was an expert in all of the areas I needed. So first you have to do with honing in on reality. What is the things that need to be happening? What is the reality? What's happening with your business? What's happening with your life? What's happening with yourself personally? And you got to get real. And we can't see the forest for the trees. We won't even see the challenges because we're living in them. So sometimes you need to actually ask someone else, a trusted friend, about, I do this thing. Is that okay? What's your opinion of it? Like, get in there and ask the questions to see what exactly is happening. I didn't even realize that the language that I was using was holding me in a pattern so that I couldn't move forward. But other people mentioned it, and then okay, all right. So change your language, change your life. And then went through a process of changing how I language things so that I could then, again, shift my frequency to a higher place. So yes, absolutely. Hone in on reality. This is where you need to get a coach and a mentor. This is where you need to get real. It's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me to go, oh my God, I am an alcoholic. Oh my God, you are a hoarder. Like this is not just a little bit of stuff. You've got a problem. So it was challenging for me to see that I was the problem, that I was the thing that needed to be changed. I'd had a series of not amazing relationships. Well, what was the one thing that was in common? Me. So what needed to change there? So it's the stark reality, honing on reality. Definitely coach and mentor around you, and definitely get help and assistance. And please, it's not necessarily all going to come from one person. Even now in business, I have a coach for my speaking. I have a coach for business structure. I have different coaches in different areas for different aspects of my business. Yeah, I even have a belly dance coach. So not one person is going to be the coach for everything. Yeah, get yourself the right person. Yeah.
Tiger Woods has a coach. For people who think that they don't need a coach, it's not the case at all. Implement quick wins.
And on every level, this is my favorite letter, because this is powerful. This is powerful. So that night, as I was staring at my giant cup of coffee, which this is how big my coffee is. This is not coffee, this is tea, but it's 600 mils. So it's not little. What I can tell you is that when you drink 5 bottles of wine a day, you need 8 cups of coffee to balance that out. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So that night, as I stared at the giant cup of coffee, and I haven't had a coffee since then, what in my brain was, oh my God, I haven't had coffee. If I can give up coffee, maybe I can give up alcohol. Maybe I can. So implementing quick wins, what happens is when we implement a quick win, it gives us a serotonin hit and makes us feel good. And it allows us to believe that other change is possible. So if you're here and you need to get there, if you're, it'd be great if you could do it in one leap. It's just not going to happen. It's incremental. It's 1% at a time, compounded. And if you've got big lofty dreams and things that you want to do, you just need to move 1% of the time and just compound it 1%, 1%, 1%. So absolutely implementing quick wins. What is the big vision for you? What is it that you want to do? So what's the little thing that you can do to move in that direction? So when I started moving forward to move away from being a hoarder, it was not a quick process. It wasn't like rip off the Band-Aid. I had to start on a few little things at a time. You know, it was a drawer to start with. Yeah. It was to lose weight. It was just, first of all, like having one less sugar. You know, like there was just little things one at a time. I wasn't unkind to myself and tried to change everything at the same time. In fact, to move from where I was to where I am now, there was one thing and then got that sorted, then the next thing and then got that sorted, next thing that got that sorted. So the hoarding I sorted out before I sorted out the alcohol. So if I tried to do it all at the same time, I really would have been a screaming mess. Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Focus on patterns.
Oh, this was such an eye opener. We are rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. They say, show me the boy at 7 and I'll show you the man. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's because pretty much everything that we need to know, we learn in the first 7 years, and then we just keep repeating the pattern. And I definitely was a perfect example of that. And so what was happening is I was just repeating patterns of behavior, and that were keeping me in a cycle. So this is what really made a difference, is journaling. Writing it down. So what happens is when you start writing it down, you can then look back at it. And what I do is a thing called rejournaling. So I journal, I write everything down. And then at the end of every week, I read that week and then I rejournal that into a paragraph. Yeah. So I'm condensing that learning. And then at the end of the month, I'll reread all of the condensed versions of the week. And then I'll recondense that. And so now I've got a month of learning. And then I will look at a year and I'll recondense all of those 12. So I call it rejournaling. For me, it's been great because what it's been able to do is I've been able to get my learnings down to sound bites because they're very condensed. Yeah. And look, journaling has been such a powerful thing. Look, it's free. Everyone can do it. It's not complicated. Just get a pen and start writing things down. For those of you out there that just don't use pen to paper, look, there are apps you can use on your phone as well for it. And if you don't like that, you can do video blogs. There's lots of different ways to do it, but you need to do it. You're learning on a daily basis and you're also repeating your patterns on a daily basis. You won't even know you're repeating them unless you can catch them. So think it, ink it, write it down. Yeah. And then it'll give you the opportunity to sort of see it and see the patterns. Now, what will happen is the patterns will emerge from the paper. Like they'll be in your face. They're like, oh, wow, I did that. Oh my gosh, yes, I did. Because we conveniently forget what we do on every level. And the other thing is family patterns. And this is really powerful. So when I started journaling, I remember having a conversation with my mum saying, oh, yeah, Mum, when I was 38, I had suicide ideation. And I wonder if there was some part of that my son picked up, and maybe that was part of how he made his choice. And so that led to a whole conversation and a whole pot of tea. And Mum said, oh, isn't that interesting? That's when 38 is when I had my nervous breakdown. That's when she left home at 38. She left our home at 38. And then we're both like still having this conversation. Okay, well, that's interesting. And then we're both looking at each other. Grandma was 38 when she committed suicide. So here we've got 3 generations at 38 have had this life situation, and each of them handled it a little differently. Yeah. But that's just one of hundreds of examples of family patterns that have emerged from writing things down. And this is the most important thing, listeners, is to have the conversations with your family. Family doesn't want to talk about it. It's better not to talk about things. They just keep it quiet. And then also they've got their own version of what happened as well. Journaling for me has meant I can have conversations with family and friends just to sort of check, hey, is this really what happened? Is this how it happened for you? Or is this just how it happened for me? And I've been able to see patterns of my own patterns, my family patterns. And also for those of you out there who believe in past lives, then, it might not even be a pattern from this life. It could be a pattern from a previous life. And that you need to see an expert for. I've definitely seen my fair share of experts in that subject, and it's really changed the way that I see my patterns of behavior. But they're all patterns. And if you want to live a different life, what patterns that you have, first of all, you need to be aware of them. And then how are you going to shift through them? Yeah.
Right, break them, shift through them. Yes. And the last, of course, Sharlene, is take action.
Now, I'm a recovering perfectionist. on
Mm.
every level. And for me, it needs to be take massive imperfect action. So I wouldn't take action unless everything was perfect, and nothing was ever perfect. So I wouldn't take action. So I was like a deer in headlights, just staring. So what I needed to learn imperfect action is fine. So if you're walking and you need to put your foot in a different direction, then it's easier to do. But if you're not moving at all, then it's really hard to take that first step. So
Mm.
baby steps, 1%, moving in the direction, and then course correct, course correct, course correct. And I love the story about the trip to the moon, because they were not on target. Like, it was 3% of the time they were actually on target. It's a straight line here to the moon. It
Wow.
can't be that hard. But only 3% of the time they were actually on target, like on that
Interesting.
line. So that's given me great hope, going, as long as I'm on sort of target at least 3% of the time, and as long as you've got that big vision about where it is that you're going, and that you've got that level of awareness. For me, it's journaling, so that I can course correct and shift and move. And we're all work in progress, and it's okay. It's okay. Just take the step. And if it needs to be changed, it's okay. At least you're moving.
Wonderful process. Absolutely wonderful. Charlene, I started my business back in the 90s. I'm a bit older than you, and I was working way too much, and not paying attention to my excuse me, not paying attention to my health. I never had a cup of coffee, by the way, my whole life, but I was abusing it in other ways. Just soda, pizza, just poor diet. I stopped exercising. I would put my work, my business in front of everything, and before you know it, I got up to 340 pounds. And the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I took the next 7 months. I lost about 130 pounds. And people always ask me how, like there's some quick answer to something that you've done to yourself. And there's no quick answer, but my one word answer to it is always discipline. I got priority, I got focus, I created routines. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Charlene Lynch.
Yeah. So with my unique challenges, discipline has sometimes been a little bit of a challenge.
Mm.
So ADHD. Discipline's not really one of our best traits when you're ADHD. So, but what
Mm.
I did lean into is my OCD. So my challenges now have become my superpower. So I lent into the OCD for ticking the box. Yeah.
Mm.
So I have to tick the box. It's like a thing. So if there's something needs to happen, then a list hasn't, and then I've got to tick it. Yes. So that helps me be disciplined. So I'm using something that I've already got, that's already innately me, that doesn't need to be shifted or changed, because it's just beautiful the way that it is. But I'm using that to help me have the discipline that I need to, because my unique makeup, my unique human design, discipline is not something that we're amazing at. Yeah.
Mm.
So finding other ways to get the job done. So yes, discipline is important. And for the listeners, you might need to find another way to get it done. So if you're more an empathetic person, and you really care about other people, if you need to get something done and it's something you need to do, sometimes you might not feel you've got the capacity to have that discipline. But when you're looking at it through the eyes or from the outcome from the other people, then you can use your empathy
Mm.
to get the job done. So know that there's other ways to get the things done, and you can get them done your way rather than just the same way as everyone else. So just use different things to get the job done. Yeah. Know thyself, and know
Mm.
what parts of you can use to get the job done. But great question. Discipline, I find very challenging. So when I'm not doing everything else, I'm a belly dancer. And the amount of discipline that these girls have is
Really?
just, it's just incredible, the number of hours that they spend. I certainly don't. But I just love the whole process of dancing and having fun and being with the girls and dressing up and glitter and tiaras and everything else. It's, at 57, what we do is we dance for people at aged care facilities, so we still feel younger.
Ah.
And when we're in public, when we're in private, we actually call ourselves the stars of denial, and our outward name is Stars of the Nile. So yeah, it works on every level. So yeah, discipline. I see other people using discipline different ways, but for me, I lean into my OCD. If I've got to tick a box, then I can use that. Absolutely. But great
Hmm.
question, Joe.
And what motivates you,
Mm.
Sharlene Lynch?
Having a vision bigger than me. So knowing to raise the frequency of the planet is having rippling effects to change and
Hmm.
help us move forward as a human race. And on every level, I wasn't able to make the changes for my own family and domestic violence and make that different. But what I am able to do is to create something bigger that can help others be in a different space. So these pamper days that we hold, we've had people come as a survivor one year, and because of the proximity and the mentoring, have come back the following year as an exhibitor and making a
Wow.
difference for others. So just those tiny acts of compassion are making a difference. And I'm so proud to say that we now not just local in just little old Adelaide, we're now a global concern and creating these pamper days on a global scale. That's yeah, having a vision bigger than you and it being about making a difference is I leap out of bed. I had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to have a conversation with you today. So
Thank
I
you.
leap out of bed because I'm making a difference. Yeah.
Hmm. And given that motivation, how do you measure success?
Hmm. Yeah. So that's a really good question. So, from the outcome that we're achieving, so from the charity's perspective, like the number of events that we're creating and the number of individuals that we're assisting through the process. So, yeah, so success from that angle is definitely a numbers game. From business, business is business, but business is also personal. People run businesses. So from the personal successes that my clients have, so for some of them, well, for most of them, it's monetary. But what happens before they get to the monetary is they have a shift themselves, and
Hmm.
they're now standing in their own authority. They're now standing in their own power. They're now believing their stuff that they've been sprouting, but not necessarily believing before. And now they're bulletproof and they are making an impact and a difference for other people themselves. So, yeah, sometimes it's even just the little things. So, church on Sunday, it could be just making a cup of tea and having people smile. So, success can be all sorts of different things.
Hmm.
And for me, success is the impact that I make for other people. And I can turn up as me, bright and shiny, being me, and with all of my warts and all, an ably different human, and just do my best to make a difference for other people. Mm.
Hmm. Now you do business coaching, you help. Who's a perfect candidate for
Oh,
someone
I
for you
love
to
that
help?
question. So, on every level, I love wellness practitioners and wellness professionals. So, from doctors through to physiotherapists to Pilates instructors, as long as you're in the field of wellness, I love that they come with a servant's heart. I
Hmm.
love that they come there to make an impact and a difference for other people. And for many of them, it's because it's made a difference for them. So they're now paying it forward and
Hmm.
they're very invested in making a difference. And I love that. And that's who I am. So I love the proximity of wellness practitioners. And for me, also, it helps me move towards my end game, which is raising the frequency of the planet, because these are people who are helping people. So I'm now helping people that are helping people. So that
Hmm.
means that, the ripple can move out even wider because they're going to have an impact on a larger group of people. So I just love working with them. They're my favorite humans. I just can sit and listen to them talk all day.
Hmm.
And as a business coach, that's what I get to do. Sit and listen to them talk all day and help them move their business to that next level of amazing.
Charlene, you're such an inspiration. You've had such you know tragedy, and you're able to turn it around. And many people that have gone to those depths would kind of maybe even heal themselves and just closed up shop. But you actually decided to turn it around, and now, hey, here's where I've been. you could be there and you could turn it around as well. That's the mark of a remarkable person. And I applaud you for doing that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Joe. It seems I'm driven to do it.
Mm,
I have always wanted to make a difference for other people, even in just the small acts of a smile. Like even when I wasn't okay, I could at least smile at other
mm,
people and they
mm,
would be okay. So I think that's the way that I'm designed. And I think when you've gone through something, and listeners, you know what I'm talking about. If you've gone through something and you've made a difference in your life, how amazing would it be to share that with others and help
mm,
them so that they don't have to go through what you had to go through to get to where you are? Yeah. And this is why I know things are changing and shifting and moving, because there are people out there doing that. We're into an age of influencers. We're moving away from people following brands and now they're following people. It's a unique place to be in, where I see it left, right, and center. People who have gone through an extraordinary experience are out there on stage speaking and running businesses, helping others through the thing that they needed to get through to get to the other side. It's happening.
it certainly is. Certainly is. Charlene, thank you so much. Such a delight to talk to you. I know we had some difficulties, but we finally got able to talk and it was well worth it. Anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, great question. So it's Sharlene with an S because I'm Irish, and Lynch, Lynch. And you can Google me. You'll find me pretty much on every platform. If you want to find all of my links, probably Linktree is the best place to look. But yeah, you can check me on my website or on any of the socials. And yeah, if you're a wellness practitioner, I'd love you to come to one of the masterclasses so that you can get an idea of what it is that you can do to unpack your intellectual property. How can you have that concise language around what it is that you do so that you've got that unique position in the market so that you can become the expert authority in the thing that you've created because no one
Mm,
else has got it. So I love that. It makes a huge difference. And if you are a survivor, please reach out because we've got events happening in your area. And if you're a practitioner with a heart for change, please reach out. We're looking for practitioners to assist us in a variety of our wellness days, our pamper days globally. Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you just want to have a cup of tea, I'm always up for a cup of
nothing wrong
tea.
with that. Yeah, certainly. CharleneLynch.com. We'll make sure to put Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Linktree all in the show notes. Again, spelled with an S, Sharlene, Lynch, Lynch.com. Charlene, such a delight. I hope when and if I get there down under, we can have a cup of tea together.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing. Do you drink wine?
I do.
Well, we have got some of the best wine, I think, in the world. We'll have to
Good to
take you
know.
to those locations. You will absolutely love them. And what's your favorite food, Joe?
Well, I'm Italian background, so I don't know. I guess some marinara, some pasta, I guess.
Oh, we have some killer joints here. Absolutely amazing Italian food. So, yes, you'll actually love Australia. You might not want to leave.
I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. Charlene, thank you so much. You be well.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.